Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Off Limits. This time we have Ambassador M.K.Bhadrakumar with us. He is actually a walking encyclopedia and an analyst on most parts of the world. But this time we have him here because he has just visited Iran as an observer. He was there during the recent elections, and we could not let this opportunity pass us by. And we are so happy, Ambassador, that you've come and are giving us some of your views today.
So, thank you very much, Seema. Always, you know Iran better than I do. My only qualification is that I've been there, and you are here, but you are a very close and shrewd observer.
No,
so
but you
must also, then let's have an interactive discussion.
Let us. But the latest developments is what you've seen. So you were there during these elections. How did you find the mood within Iran, given the fact the whole geopolitical situation that they are in the region, with America, with the world, with NATO, everybody breathing down their necks in the middle of this assassinations and an election? So how did it work for the people? What did you gather?
Well, you have sprung a surprise on me because I didn't come prepared for Iran. But it's a country on which you can comment only after much reflection. So I really don't know whether
that's why we appreciated more
everything that I had, because the myriad impressions.
That's what we want, actually.
And in a period of 8 days and all kinds of impressions, and I had a good time, because it was an extended visit, and I could talk to people freely, and that kind of thing. So let me start from here. I went, of course, there's a surfeit of inputs from the Western media about the situation in Iran, that the election is going to be a very challenging thing for the government, for the establishment, for Supreme Leader Khamenei in particular. But, the Iran that I knew was very much there, which is, that election time is a very jovial time, animated discussions, and all kinds of opinion making. And, in the Iranian system, the selection of the candidates, it is done on the basis of the recommendation from the establishment of the Guardian Council. And that is after much waiting. Waiting is basically waiting in terms of a person's credentials to head the system, the executive there, in terms of his record. Because Iran has had very terrible experiences of sabotage from within, subversion from within. Even after the revolution, this had happened. So they have to be careful, because the one thing that is not up for sale is the removal of the guardianship, that system on which the Iranian edifice stands. Now, that is not to be questioned. Unless you have a fundamental commitment to that system, you're not qualified to serve that system. You're not qualified to head the system. It's as simple as that. There's nothing more than that. And the usual security considerations by the Interior Ministry. Interior Ministry is the one which actually runs the whole thing, because they have the archives and they do everything like that. So it's not like in the Western world, that anybody can just walk in and contest an election like that. But in America also, voting takes place. And it's a highly selective process. And very often, not only very often, it's mostly, in a party democracy. And much depends on the kind of money that you can mobilize for fighting an election. Otherwise, you are disqualifying yourself if you don't have that kind of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, in your war chest. So, every country has got its peculiarities. That is the thing. So once that is done, the system allows free play. And then, everyone is getting a level playing field to say his piece. And all very animated discussions. And in Iran, everything begins in the evening after, we finish the work, and through the night, these chat shows and all that kind of thing. So I was witness to that. That was an
I'm sure it
exhilarating
was, yes.
experience to me. Because you see, these debates and discussions and all that, they're very intellectually, there's a lot of punch in it, content in it. It is not like calling each other names and, the kind of election we had here. It's not like that. So that is one part of it. So that means what? That means that there is fundamentally, there is a sense of empowerment on the part of the people. And the people were watching the television and they were taking part in it and they were reacting to it. Later it became the topic of discussion the very next day. First thing you meet anyone, they say, did you see the debate last night? That kind of thing. See? So the empowerment, the sense of empowerment, which is a legacy of the revolution, that is still very much there. Then, of course, there is always this case of the middle class, the upper middle class, the urban class, with its own sectarian interests, in terms of the lure of the West, in terms of, the soft power of Coca-Cola and, that kind of thing. So, that is a separate one. Now, the main thing that I saw there is that this time there was absolutely no hesitation in opening it to a known reformist like
Was he popular then during the election, or were people still discussing him?
I'll tell you. It's the way he evolved actually, and then I discovered many things about him. Now, he appeared on the list and nobody gave a chance. In fact, the initial writings in the press, in the Western press, which I was also reading at that time there, when I was there, they were all saying that, he is not representative of the reformist thing, etc. And he has absolutely no chance. He's been just put there like that. And then I saw over this period of a week or 10 days, as the debates began, that he began surging. Nobody capped him,
Okay.
He began surging and he came to one of the top three. The other three are the Majlis mayor and then Jalili, who's a very well-known name, the nuclear negotiator, and eight to supreme leader. So I asked many people, and the establishment people are all convinced that Jalili is the man, and the others have been put there for embellishing the democratic process. That was the general input which came in, except some very perceptive people. And one person who's a professor in the Tehran University, he told me that the ground is shifting, in certain ways, and he pointed out to me certain things. For instance, in the debate, nobody demanded the removal of hijab laws, including this reformist candidate. Now, there is a consensus to this extent now in that society. This is very important to know because this is emblematic of the adjustments that Iran is also making. That it's up to the woman to decide whether she wants hijab or not. And it's not for the state to impose it, you see. Because the reality is that, a fairly significant section of the society has no problem with it.
But that I understand, but they didn't have to have the moral police catching hold of those.
That's what I'm saying. So the debate was there, and Pezeshkian said, and even including the so-called hardliners admitted, that this is not a matter for the state to arbitrate. This
that
is
would be major if they move that way. Yeah.
So I saw women, I saw girls fashionably dressed with head uncovered.
Okay.
And wearing lipstick and
that,
cosmetics.
Of course, they did, but okay.
Yeah, what I'm saying is there is this. We haven't had this actually as an explosive issue in the debates during the election.
So when they say
I didn't expect this, frankly.
No, that's very interesting. So when they say he's a reformist for within as well, is it? Is he looking for a more liberal society?
He's actually much more concerned about the economy.
Okay.
And, now I'll tell you, he began surging. And it stands to reason that with a smile on his face, probably Ayatollah Khamenei was watching and enjoying it and allowed him to surge. In fact, after the results came out, in his first remarks, he went to the mausoleum of Imam Khomeini, and in front of a huge audience, he thanked the Supreme Leader for making his victory possible. That is a stunning remark, certainly. That that full opportunity was given to him, and he was never stopped. And he said, they were not allowed to stop me. You get the
that's interesting. Yes.
implication there.
Yes.
And he thanked Ayatollah Khamenei by name, Supreme Leader by name, and he attributed him the credit for this. So then, of course, when I heard his name and that he was surging, naturally, I took interest to delve deeper into it. And I found that his father was an Azeri.
Okay.
And his mother is Kurdish.
Okay.
And he is from the northwest part of Iran.
That I've read, yes.
And a small town boy who grew up there. And he's a cardiac surgeon by profession, and rather competent in his profession, and had earned a good reputation. But he is convinced that Iran needs to change in certain ways. For example, this phobia about relationship with the West, which is now, of course, the final word I cannot say on that, where it is going to lead to, because it's this mobilization by the United States.
But pinpointing it a little bit more, since you've come to the topic, is that should the West be scared of him, worried about him rather?
Very much, very much. Because you see, the point is, once you lose this issue of hijab and of reform as something, and the stigma about reform as something anti-establishment. Once you have done that, now I really do not know. You see, Imam Ayatollah Khamenei is a very intelligent. Is a very intelligent mind, and I'm sure he would have been pondering over it, because 2 times he permitted reforms to come, and what happened? One was, Hatami, and the other one was Rouhani, and both were actually from the clerical establishment. Both were clerics, Rouhani and Hatami.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Here is a man who is actually a doctor, and he was actually brought to Tehran from his obscure past, brought over there by Hatami, because he had built a huge reputation in the country as the deputy minister first, and then the minister for health. So that is how he enters public life.
Right.
Hatami wanted him to revamp the medical system in the country, and there he began. And he was not a street fighter when this reformists came, and the collisions were taking place between the reformists and the so-called hardliners, and all that rhetorics and anti-rhetoric and all that kind of thing. Anyway, the presence of this person in the electoral list, as a candidates, took many people by surprise. He came because he had put in, but he was a member of the Majlis for over 2 decades.
Okay, so that's important too.
He's a man with a high IQ, and he would have known how the system works.
Right.
He would have understood how to use the system, all that kind of thing.
So, because you said, I know that you've just returned, you're still marshalling your thoughts, and I pushed this on you, whereas originally we were going to talk about Bangladesh, which we will a little bit. But I just want to ask, now that you've given us this full background and the fact that there is a support for him and that he's looking towards liberalizing to some extent the situation at home, is he going to continue the policy? I mean, what did you pick up his threads, maybe if not an actual policy about Iran's role in that region, vis-a-vis Palestine, Hamas, Hezbollah? And is he also the kind of person who will react more cautiously to what the Americans and the West is saying and this assassination that has taken place? Or is he more aggressive in nature?
You see, the real issue here is this, that the Americans have, if their intentions are good and smart, they would engage this man. Because here is someone who's evidently committed to the belief that Iran must have a good working relationship with the Western world.
Okay.
If its legitimate interests are considered, that's a different matter. But he is not for making the bomb or anything. He is for opening the negotiations, and he has stated that it is still possible to revive the JCPOA.
Okay.
But the question is, I took part in some discussions there on television also. The Press TV had called me for an interview knowing that I was there. So then I was asked about this. So I mentioned at that time that the issue is really not so much this as to what Pezeshkian wants. The issue is what the Americans are looking for. Now, where we left off, if you go back to it, what has happened quintessentially what has happened is, I think the Iranian establishment, Iranian system, one may say, has assimilated reformism.
I see.
It is no longer a kind of an issue into which the CIA or subversive Western intelligence can enter and create street protests and all that kind of thing. I saw on report today, this kind of thing will happen, that Nobel Prize winner has been roughed up in the jail. I saw the Western agencies are trying to stoke the fires. But the point is, the people know this person, knows that he is a very devout Muslim, and at the same time committed to reform. And therefore, really speaking, that old issue has been settled. It is not an issue there anymore. And he will go for reforms if he has a free hand. And I have a feeling that Ayatollah Khamenei is backing him. Now, this is a big change from the earlier time, Khatami's and Rouhani's time, when he was observing and the hardliners, made things difficult. But this time, I don't expect that. But for the Americans now, there is a much bigger dilemma. Because earlier time, there were many options in the containment strategy, short of a war. That is creating a phalanx of forces in the regional states, and create an anti-Iran front, and integrating Israel into that front, so that Israel's integration also takes place. This was the American strategy throughout, putting them in touch with the Gulf states. Abraham Accords was built on that spirit, on that intellectual framework. Now, that is not possible because the Saudis, Emiratis, they have bolted away. And now it is very difficult to put it together also for the reason that they have tasted the beauty of diversified external relations. They have a thriving relationship with China. And, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, here things don't get reported. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Saudi fund, has now formally linked up with Chinese banks. It's a very major thing in terms of...
That's very major, yes.
And they are discussing seriously about local currencies for oil trade. And in BRICS, Saudis are going along with this, a new payment system. So now you see, therefore, petrodollar era is ending and all that. And Emiratis had always, that is where they collided with the Americans, had always been in the recent years developing relations with China. So you see, Americans don't have that option. And particularly now with this Holocaust in Gaza, I don't think the Arab countries and the Muslim Middle East is going to be in any position to have a formal uh, um, uh, relationship or formal communication or anything with the Israelis for a foreseeable future. So that option is not there anymore. At the
Right.
same time, that they understand now that their influence has become very, very low, touched a very low point. So therefore, what I fear is, this is the point I would like to leave with you. That the point is that in the observing this country and observing the US-Iran tango over the last 4 decades, I can tell you, I never believed that there could be a war. But I have a feeling that the Americans are probably now for the West. And this also for another reason. This
Mm.
80-year-old man in the White House, embittered that he's been humiliated, and this is how his 50-year-old public life is going to end with
So he
no
might do it with nachos.
legacy.
Mhm.
He
He
has
might
nothing,
do it. Yeah.
he has nothing to lose, and he is not accountable anymore, and his career is ending.
That'd be crazy, though.
I have a feeling from the way they are mobilizing, and I was reading the Pentagon spokesman's briefings. It's very, very interesting. That's what I'm going to write today, actually.
Yeah.
It's this that I get a sense that they are actually preparing for war.
But then last question. But then Russia, China, they're not going to keep out of this, right?
You
They
see,
can't allow
yeah,
Iran to be hammered.
that is where the thing is, Americans have a game plan. That is, if you connect the dots, and that is where this Kursk offensive by Ukraine fits in.
Okay.
That is now leading to, yesterday, I don't know if you read this, yesterday Politico had leaked it, that Biden is open to the idea of supplying long-range missile systems with about 1,000-kilometer range.
It's going to be quite crazy. Yes. Horrible.
And the Kirby in his briefing has said that they are looking for the rhetoric on nuclear thing. You see, my sense is that they are actually wanting to corner Russia by attacking deep inside Russia, that Russia doesn't even have any strategic depth in terms of their defense industry and so on. They can hit Moscow with this new weapon that is being given. And then what happens? What is the Russia's option? Use tactical nuclear weapons. They cannot use it in the Russian land, they have to use it in Ukraine. And that gives the alibi for the NATO to move in. So,
You really think there would be this full-fledged war?
I really think that Biden's, if you have followed this Russian-American relations, Biden has always been, he has hatred towards Putin, and he is incorrigibly Russophobic, And I have a feeling that he is looking now for a legacy in terms of two things. One is smashing Russia, weakening it, and driving it out of the center stage.
Which hasn't happened.
Which hasn't happened, but which we still can. And then, it may not lead to the balkanization, dismemberment of Russia, regime change, or anything like that. But can very well weaken Russia significantly. And that is, and at the same time, yesterday's paper said that the US Treasury Department has engaged China. The financial part of the relationship, nobody speaks about, because that is where China has put those hundreds of billions of dollars in US Treasury bonds and so on, which are,
So this kind of an assessment, did you hear from within Iran as well?
No. This is nothing to do with Iran.
No, this is to do with you, of course. But I said, are they also aware that the Americans might be moving into a full war? Are they preparing for it, or are they in denial?
I got it. I have a feeling that the Iranians, like the Russians, are a little complacent.
Okay.
Americans are a spent force, and they don't have the will to do that. They are not correlating it with the psychology of this old man sitting there. And if you see the American press, you'll see that he's a really embittered man, and he has nothing to show. And 50 years ending in debris. everything, and humiliated nationally, as a senile old man, knowing worse can happen to him. So he has to pick up something, and only in foreign affairs he can do that now. So he will show, and possibly between now and November, they may not be able to hide anymore that the economy is moving into recession. It may also be very difficult. The opening of talks with China shows that the Treasury Department knows the gravity of the situation there. So you see, all these things taken into account. I'm not explaining in detail because Seema,
I know.
You understand all this. So the Iranians, when you talk with them, their thing is that they dare not do this because we can give them a punch that they have never known before in their life. I don't dispute that. They have their missile system, etc. But they also Americans also have the means to destroy this country and set it back by 30, 40 years. And they have they have politicians who say bomb it to Stone Age. That is a kind of mode there. And then in the US opinion, the very small section apart, the people don't care much for Iran. So you see, there is no domestic opinion. Like in the case of the Palestinian issue, it began coming up. That will take a long time for it to come. And meanwhile, all this will get played out on television screens and all that. And it'll probably give a little bit of credit to Kamala Harris also, that this is a decisive administration of which she is a part herself. So, all those things, come into play. Iranians are, therefore, I have a feeling the Iranians are, but at the same time, having said that, I must also give credit that after all, over 2 weeks have passed since the assassination of Khamenei. And the fact that they have not done anything so far, and now I don't think they will also, because the Americans also have a trap set for them, which is this talks in Doha. And from all accounts that I see, there was a joint statement by the British Foreign Office and the French Foreign Ministry yesterday. The foreign ministers visited Israel. And they said that the foreign secretary said that the whole thing is cusp of change, is the phrase used there.
Right.
The whole thing has come to that stage. So if, for instance, a ceasefire develops, exchange of prisoners, and the main sticking point, pull out of the Israelis from Gaza altogether, I don't think Iranians can do much about it. They are kept, of course, completely out of these processes, but they will find it very difficult to then go on the offensive in terms of the retaliation.
So right now, it does seem from whatever is coming out, even in the legacy media across the world, is that Iran is under a lot of pressure. Iran, not to counter or retaliate against this assassination. Iran is not saying it will not. It's not giving any kind of assurance to the Western negotiators that it will listen to this plea. Third, the Doha talks are on, and they want to, like you said, entrap Iran in that. And fourth, the Americans will not attack if Iran sort of plays ball, right?
Yes, that is very much there. But you see, then on the other side, that option is always there, military option. And to prepare for that, they are also doing a number of other things. For example, they lifted the ban on that weapon system for Saudi Arabia, for example. So, they are also, moving like that. The UAE, there is a lot of effort to mend the relationships, ease the tensions, etc. That is there. And the agenda of isolating Iran in its region is very much there,
Of course, but they're not succeeding somehow, right?
Sorry, it is?
They're not succeeding in isolating Iran.
It's not possible because you see, the thing is, I think it is very genuine, this change that has come over the Saudi mind,
That's it, basically. Yes.
The whole thing about using extremist elements outside for force projection, number one, while cracking inside domestically. And then number two, by putting their finger into all the pies in the neighborhood, that part of it. And the third thing is this kind of a maniacal obsession with Iran. That is the other part of it.
Yeah.
And the fourth one is that, what exactly is power about and what exactly is, great power status about. And this young prince, he has said some sensible things. He has eased, the restrictions internally. And he also has
He's
repeatedly
listening
said,
to the younger generation a little bit more,
yes,
I think.
yes. And that, that the future lies with countries which focus on development.
Yes.
That's a very big change. So
Yeah.
with all that is there, I don't think he will be, at best, what will Americans manage? Americans may get rights over Saudi airspace for their bombing operations. That also remains to be seen, because the Iranians will hit, countries, definitely, because this is going to be an existential war for Iran. It's not that the Islamic system
Israel will get it. Yeah.
Israel will get it.
Yeah.
And so, it's anybody's guess. So one thing is possible, that, that the Americans are really putting a hell of a lot of pressure on Iran, like at no time in the past history of the past 4 decades, and to make it submit, to the American will. That is one possibility. But there is this Pentagon remarks show that they also are keeping open an option of an attack on Iran.
Okay.
And they have never ever said that, even Kamala Harris has only said this, that we will do the utmost to defend Israel. But they have inched more, they have taken several steps more than that. So they are moving into a frame of mind that one of these days we may hear that they will punish Iran. So that's a different matter. The other one was, because you see, the last time for bringing down all those drones and all that, they were estimated to have said, the Iranian, one professor is a very old friend of mine and very, very frank with me. In fact, we discussed Pezeshkian and all very frankly. He said it was actually, their estimate is that $4.5 billion it cost the United States. So that is also a serious matter. They can't do this time and again. So that's where it is. So Iran coming period. But I am my own judgment is that Biden knows that a Middle Eastern war is something that can destroy the candidacy of Kamala Harris. Because Trump is there also waiting in the wings to take advantage.
Yes, and that chaos might go towards...
And the economy cannot afford it.
No.
And this,
and the other thing is, I think...
I haven't finished it. This attack will not be bankrolled by the oil-rich countries, because they will not associate themselves with this. So this, more or less, this will have to be done by the Americans themselves, And I saw that day before yesterday, Austin spoke to 14th, Austin spoke to the British Foreign Secretary to revive their special relationship. So Brits, of course, they are telling the Brits in advance, that is the signal one gets that there may be action. But what can Britain do under the present circumstances? With 80,000 soldiers in their army, the point beyond which they are offline. So, but even then, I have a feeling that Biden's ultimate thing, keeping this military option open, but ultimate thing may be to wrap up, impose rather, a settlement over Gaza and all that.
I was going to ask you this only.
And Iran must learn to live with it.
Yes, and the whole policy is going to be now whether America also wants to move towards the annihilation of Palestinians, or whether it is looking at peace and some level of justice as a solution.
The Americans, I really don't know whether it has come in the press here. The Americans are regularly talking with Hezbollah. Because you see, that is a flashpoint that, that has been contained very successfully, rather, and they are very satisfied with the signals they have got from Hezbollah.
Because of Lebanon, yes.
And on their part, they will not do anything. So these Houthis and all can make a lot of noise, but it's not very destructive. But Hezbollah and Iran are the two main players there.
So we are looking in some uncertain times, but from a reporter's point of view, very exciting times.
Aren't you planning to travel there?
Yes. I mean, that's why, the minute you said you were there, I said we'll do Bangladesh as two, as the second part of this whole interview, and I'm going to book you for that again, because I don't want to dilute all this interesting and, literally from the ground information that you have shared with us and our viewers. So I will let you go, Ambassador, and I hope to fix another interview with you
Great,
on
great.
Pradesh alone.
The more the merrier.
Lovely.
It's always
as part two, because
chatting with you. That's terrific for me.
Lovely.
Always.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank
Take
you.
care.